Good morning, everyone. I hope the keynotes kind of set the tone for this morning and tomorrow, and I want to kind of kick things up a notch, right? Football kick, right? There's some analogy there. But I want you to hold on to something for a moment. So what if I told you that your greatest setback could become the most significant opportunity that you ever had, right? And I want you to hold on to that thought for a few minutes, because in the next couple of slides, I'm going to show you a number on the screen, and it changed absolutely everything for me. So I want to share my journey from when one career ended very, very abruptly, and then the kind of journey and transformation that I've been on moving forward to kind of what I do now. So before we start, I want this session to be interactive. So if you scan the QR code, you can ask a set of questions. We'll do them in priority order. You can up-rank them. I'll do it, I'll answer them at the end in priority order. If I don't get to the end of all of the questions, come and see me afterwards. I'll be around the rest of the days. So this is like a timeline of my life, starting at 4 years old. I don't know how you can get scouted playing football at 4 years old, but anyway, it happened. I still don't know how it's possible. But life surprises us, right? There's many curveballs that kind of force you to have to do a lot of reassessment and a lot of adaptation, right? And the journey that I've been on is basically from football to technology, right? And there's a pivot in the middle that I don't have enough time to go in, molecular detail, but some startups will be proud of the pivot. And there's kind of unexpected twists, right? There's triumphs and challenges along the way. But I think what's most important is it's not where you start, but it's how you navigate this journey, and it's the lessons that we've been on in life that actually make us a lot more useful in a certain type of industry, in a certain type of situation than you may think, right? And there's lessons from football, and we're going to go on to that in a minute, that kind of shaped the success that I have in tech. And if we think about kind of imposter syndrome and not knowing if we're good enough, right? I played professional sport, and all of a sudden I'm sat in a boardroom trying to tell someone that they should run Kubernetes in production. And they're looking at me as an expert, and I've only been running it for a couple of weeks, right? Sound relatively familiar? So I want to start with one quick question. So what is the most important trait of being a good team member? And hopefully this mouse is going to work and tell me where it is. Where are you, mouse? I just saw it. This isn't working. There we go. So yeah, what's the most essential trait, right, of being a good team member, right? And whether that be teams in sport, whether that be teams in work, right? What's that one valuable skill that you think is most important for everybody? So far, the one that I personally... So my journey's kind of crossed over a bunch of skills, right? And kind of keep these in mind, and we're going to go through these. That one of them on the list specifically is the one that I think is the most important. So, where are we? Come on. This should be a solved problem by now. Okay, so yeah, I was scouted at 4 years old, right? And someone came up to me, older gentleman, and said, you've got potential, right? And that was it. I was like, cool, football's going to become my world, right? Every kick, every practice session, every match, built on this dream. And this dream was paying inside of the biggest stadiums, right? Whether that be Wembley, whether that be Champions League final, whether that be World Cup. These weren't just goals for me. They were goals for me. They weren't just events, right? And there was kind of lessons beyond the obvious, can you bend a free kick in the top corner like Beckham can, right? It's relentless dedication and pushing through, when your legs feel like absolute lead and you can't run any further, but you need to run for the rest of the team. There's constant focus, right? Can I read the field? Can I make that split-second decision to pass it left rather than pass it right? But the biggest one, right, is I had to dream big, and I had to work really, 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 really hard to chase my dreams. So I want you to ask yourself, what's your football? What was your childhood passion when you were young? And then apply that fire to your current position right now, right? And your dreams may change, but the dreamer doesn't have to. And I think that's really, really important, right? And early passion for me, at least, was my secret weapon in technology. So there's some obvious kind of lessons, right? If we look at life on the football field to life in technology. So we start with teamwork, right? On the pitch, there's 11 players. There's one goal, right? The goal is to score the goal. But actually, people think that the striker is the most important person on the team because they're the one that gets all the glory because they score. But actually, it's all the set of intricate passes that are required to be able to get to the end destination, which is the goal. And if you think about that in kind of technology, it's one product, but there's many, many people, and all those people have to communicate in order to be able to deliver that product. And the key message here really for teamwork is that no one scores alone and no one deploys alone, right? It's a team of people that are required to be able to do that. And then communication is kind of the obvious one, right? In football, it's that kind of split-second decision or kind of that constant chatter and communication on the field. And in tech, it's like stand-ups or code reviews or like incidents and how you communicate with both your team, up, sideways. Without good communication, we're not going to succeed. And there's kind of clear parallels there with communication. Empathy for me personally is like the number one most important one, right? It's knowing when a teammate needs support and when you should put your arm. It's one of the most important things. Okay, so where was I? Empathy, yeah. So knowing when your teammate needs support, right? And I think one of the things that we need to do better as an industry is know when our team members in our teams need support. So one of the things you learn when you play professional sport is you don't always make it into the starting 11, right? Sometimes you don't get picked for 3 or 4 months. And you're like, why am I not being picked? Or maybe you are the one that starts every week. You've got to put your arm around these people and say, look, you'll eventually get it, your time will come, how can I help you, et cetera, et cetera. And in tech, it's really about understanding users' needs, right, and supporting teams. And I'm panicking that this microphone's going to cut out. And then empathy turns like good teams into great ones, right? And for me, it's like a winning formula. So on the top there, we've got the football formula, which is, teamwork plus communication plus empathy equals championships. For technology, it's about how we deliver successful products, right? If we don't do this stuff, we're not going to deliver successful products. And then some other probably less obvious ones. So we've got strategic planning, right? So it's reading the opponent, tactics, et cetera, et cetera. In tech, it's a lot more like a roadmap, right? Sprint planning, architectural design. Like victory's planned before the whistle blows, and I think victory's planned also before we build products, right? There's a reason why we do sprint plannings. There's a reason why we have a roadmap, although some companies that I've worked in didn't have a roadmap and they didn't get success, but that's a different story. And then like leadership, right? So we've got football captains, they rally the team and they make the on-field decisions, but like in tech, you've got tech leads that are responsible for guiding those teams and making those kind of critical project calls that you may or may not want to hear. And then like leaders specifically inspire performance, right, beyond the playbook of like just the day-to-day life. And then adaptability and agility. So like adjusting tactics in mid-game is very similar to like needing to pivot mid-sprint, right? There's a bug or there's a CVE that's just been released and everyone has to stop what they're doing and they've got to handle these unexpected requirements that just come in. And then kind of the ability to be able to turn those setbacks into comebacks. And then if we kind of look at that equation, on the top we've got plan, lead, and adapt is like a match victory, and then we've got something similar for the project success. So then we've got some other ones, right? So we've got like performing under pressure, right? The crucial last minutes of a football game are also like these impending deployment deadlines. Some of them are arbitrary deadlines just to get you to hurry up, right? We all know about how they work. And then these critical bug fixes that are actually legitimate critical bug fixes, right? And pressure doesn't build character. For me, it reveals it. And you can see how different people react in certain different types of situations. So there was a lot of time, personally, when I played professional football, that I was under a lot of stress in terms of like, I wanted to make sure that I stayed in the team constantly. And also there was a lot of stress inside the changing room, right? And if you translate that to like inside the boardroom, how many of you have been in a stressful situation inside a boardroom and people just start shouting at each other and getting like highly, highly passionate, and the passionate borders on aggression, right? It's almost certainly the quietest person in the room has the best solution, but you've just got to let that person be able to talk, right? And some people don't feel the ability to be able to get up there and shout, and the loudest voice is going to get heard, but maybe he or she doesn't have the loudest voice and just needs to be given that type of space. Resilience, kind of obvious, right? Bouncing back from a crushing defeat. We've got recovering from failed deployments, from security breaches. Like I worked in a security company previously, so I know all about security breaches. Right, we've got to have resilience to kind of get back from that. And then mental stamina, right? You've got to play for 90, 120 minutes. In tech, that's the kind of long debugging sessions or that complex kind of mathematical problem solving. I'm going to skip this slide for a sec. So I want to start with this number. Hands up, anyone has a guess what this number is, what this percentage is. So this is the number or the percentage of people that are academy players that actually go professional. Somehow I crept into this percentage, right? But in reality, that's not a very large percentage, and you have to have another life after football. There's a high percentage chance that you're not going to make it, right? And it's kind of this dreams versus reality, right? Like thousands have dreamed about it, but like only a handful ever make it. And this number is not just a number, right? It's like stories of dedication, hope, heartbreak, right? There's plenty of people that I know that are well-known figures that you've never ever heard of that could have made it, but just didn't because, they were too small or they weren't at the right place at the right time. And it's like, I'm not telling you to not do this. Like, pursuing excellence is like always a valuable thing to do, right? But it's like, we have to have a life outside of football, right? And it's like gaining and thinking about these skills that are transferable, right? And it wasn't until like I went through injury that I actually sat down, and I was talking to Lewis about this over dinner a couple of days ago. There's more transferable skills that you have right now than you actually realize. And it wasn't until I sat down in a dark room, and we'll get onto that in a second, that I actually realized. So, like, failure in one dream, right, can be a catalyst for success in another, but you've just got to have the mindset that you're not going to let, the setback define you. You're going to overcome that. So, this is the moment that kind of changed everything, right? So I had a terrible knee injury, pretty graphic. I could spin my kneecap both ways around my leg. I blew my ACL, tore my medial and lateral ligaments. I couldn't weight bear for 18 months. I basically relied on my parents to do absolutely everything. Showering, going to the toilet, literally everything. I couldn't do anything. This was me for 18 months, right? And my dreams are kind of shattered, right? I wanted to be Messi. I wanted to be on £1 billion a week. Nothing was going to be a problem. I was going to have everything that I ever wanted, right? And then the future that I knew, bang, gone in an instant. And when it spiraled into depression, I threw my bed outside my bedroom window. My parents found me underneath my desk, just sobbing. I didn't know what I was going to do, right? And I was facing this kind of future without football, and I didn't know what that was going to look like. Right, I had a massive identity crisis. Like, who am I if I'm not a footballer? Everybody at school knows me as the guy that plays football. So what was I going to do, right? And this setback kind of forces you to do a deep introspection of yourself as a human, right? And you discover strength that you didn't know you had, right? From underneath underneath the desk crying, to actually sitting there and working out a plan of action for how I was going to get out of this mess. Did I want to go back to football? Did I not want to go back to football? What could I do with the fact that I was literally like this for 18 months, and how could I make it work for me, right? And it wasn't just football for me. It was like absolutely everything. And one of the things that I didn't want to do is I didn't want to let this setback define me, right? I wanted to completely redefine myself. The Steve Wade that was going to come out after I could officially actually put two steps in front of another was going to be a completely different person to anyone ever knew before. That was the mindset that I had from the beginning. I didn't want to become a victim, right? I wanted to become an author of my own future. So I was kind of lost in this void, right? And I was dealing with depression and uncertainty like I was talking about. And then I had this kind of awakening, which was I had to venture into some kind of unknown territory, right? That I had no idea what that was. And that could have been absolutely everything. Luckily, I call it like the leg up that I had. My dad worked in tech. He worked in IT. I saw him kind of writing these long method names with like no spaces between words. And I was like, this doesn't look like English. Like, what have we been learning at school? And then I became kind of inquisitive. And I think Duffy's talk at the keynote about being curious is where it kind of all kicked in for me. That really resonated a lot. Right? And I just became super curious with absolutely everything to do with tech. From like why you're concatenating all of these words together to like, what the hell is PHP? And I just was relentlessly studying from my bed. Right? I set up a little laptop. I started working on it. And I just thought to myself, if I can learn everything and use all of this time I have available to me, something good will come from it, right? And I just changed from the football field to a keyboard, put on a ton of weight. We'll gloss over that bit. But I realized that I now had a new passion. This tech field was so big. I had so many things to think about and learn. And then, like, from the football pitch, we're now looking at the digital landscape, right? And it was kind of a very familiar feeling, right? I'm like a rookie all over again, learning something from the first time. From like the 4-year-old kid that was trying to work out how to pass the ball like 30 meters, I'm now trying to work out like what a container is, right? And this learning curve was absolutely ginormous, right? The tech landscape is absolutely huge, right? And there were still setbacks in this, right? From like missed goals in football to like trying to work out why my container wouldn't start because I gave it the wrong flag, right? And it was like constant learning. And it was really going back to that same toolkit that I had when I was a footballer, right? It was like that discipline that I had. I practiced daily. I was constantly learning. I was reading some books that were less useful than others. I was pushing through when I was super frustrated with why certain things weren't working. Certain languages that I was learning, I found out when I was going into industry, no one was using them anymore, so I ended up wasting a bunch of time. I'm not going to name which ones they are, but one of them begins with a P. And kind of bouncing back from these failures, right? I think Duffy was talking about it this morning. Like, just try and break things and learn from them. Like, the best way to learn is to break things, because you have to fundamentally understand the building blocks of how it kind of works. And it wasn't for me just like acquiring skills. It was like developing this brand new technical mindset, right? And embracing this kind of always learning mentality. And that's something that stuck with me forever, right? I'm constantly inquisitive. Like, Lewis and I did a little live stream last week about Adira. And now I'm constantly trying to work out and like delve into Adira, because it's like scratched that itch. And like, success in tech is very much like success in football, right? It's about continuous improvement of you personally and the people that are around you, right? How can we level up the people that are around us? And also they'll help you level up as well, right? And one of the like phrases that a mentor of mine gave me was like, today's expert is tomorrow's student, right? And I think that really resonates with me, that we've got to constantly keep learning, right? And then if we go all the way kind of back to square one, right, when I was injured, it was kind of a lot of late nights, it was mistakes, it was frustrations. And then I kind of had to discover this new passion, right? And somehow I discovered cloud native tech. And we're about to go into a super mega pivot that I was talking about in a second. And it was so vast, but it was like so cool at the same time. And I kind of discovered this passion, right? And luckily enough now, over the course of like from being 18 to now, I've been lucky enough to train 8,000 people worldwide. As now I do a role as a cloud native consultant and trainer. And my kind of mission is to like not just share tech, but it's like to empower the next generation of cloud native engineers, right? And constantly keep learning. Here comes the super pivot. So all of a sudden, randomly, I just found Kubernetes. There's a whole conversation about Kelsey Hightower and how he taught me what Kubernetes is. Come and grab me afterwards and we can talk about that. But it felt like this kind of missing piece, right? It was like Kubernetes is about orchestrating components. And to me, it was like this like absolutely world-class football squad that just knew how to like perfectly lay out the tactics for the right application. And from the football field to the Kubernetes cluster, right? If we look at players and we talk about them as containers, and we look at positions in the football field and we talk about those as kind of roles and role-based access control, and then like team coordination and tactics in football is kind of like how do you build like effective and efficient orchestration? And Kubernetes was kind of doing this for us, right? And that's why, to me at least, kind of Kubernetes clicked. Like we were talking about planning deployments, we were talking about this kind of microservices and architectural collaboration and teamwork across teams. But like Kubernetes to me is just like the building blocks of something much, much bigger, right? And that's about building these self-service platforms for developers. And like I wanted to empower teams like I was doing in football. So if we look at this kind of self-service platform to developers, and there's hundreds and hundreds of tools, you know, you have to scan out to be able to see all of the CNCF landscape, right? But if we draw on this, like it's like football, right? Where players need to make quick decisions. We need to empower developers to be able to make quick decisions, but kind of in the guardrails where they don't do something absolutely stupid, right? And it was very much like that in football, right? And in agility today is kind of key in today's tech environment. And then developers need this kind of agility to be able to manage these applications quickly, right? Without these kind of manual processes. And I've been fortunate and unfortunate enough to work in a number of financial institutes where they love manual process delays. But if we can get to a position whereby we have this, we kind of give them the freedom to be able to move quickly, like within a structure that supports kind of efficiency and quality. And I wanted to kind of make it known that I think that the skills that we gain in team sports are actually transferable, right? If we talk about like we're both orchestrating complex systems, right? Whether that be complex players on a football field or complex containers in a cluster, right? It's all about this orchestration and how we communicate with each other. And then it kind of goes beyond teamwork, right? Football really taught me kind of leadership, strategy, resilience, you know, performing under pressure, the things we kind of talked about previously. They overlap a lot to what you do in a boardroom or what you do in a tech industry. And for me, it's like this piece of secret sauce, right? It's understanding individual strengths and kind of playing to them. and the ability to be able to kind of combine these components for the greater impact. So the kind of human element, right, is crucial in football and tech. And I think this is the piece that we don't talk about necessarily enough. And it's about that connection, that communication, and that trust that you have with each other. And that goes far, far beyond just having a bunch of skills, right? And in tech, it's the same thing, right? It's the people who are actually more important than the tools and the code, right? The age-old phrase that the tech's easy, the people are difficult. And it's because we become difficult to be able to communicate with. We don't meet the person in the middle. And there's a number of different, like, examples of that, right? When we talk about you've done it before, therefore it must be the right way of doing it, and you don't let the junior be able to speak because the senior's seen this problem 3, 5, 10 times and they know how to solve this problem. But actually, maybe the junior engineer has a different way of seeing it, right? And is curious. And I think we need to be better at that in the industry. And it's kind of understanding those developers' needs, right? Anticipating their challenges, but also providing support. And I think that kind of comes back to the empathetic piece. And to me, at least, like, collaboration is the most important thing, right? The technology doesn't drive itself, right? The people do. If we don't talk and collaborate with each other, we're not going to get anywhere. And then when human connection and kind of collaboration aligned, like, the result is greater than the sum of its parts, that's when I think we truly win, right? When we combine these two things together. And, you know, like, in the age of, I'm going to say the buzzword, right, AI and automation, we've got to make sure that we nurture this human element. It's going to become even more crucial than it ever was. We're going to end up talking to a lot of prompts, but we also need to be able to talk to a lot of humans at the same time. And I think, like, personal brand, and I've talked about this to a number of people before, right, is about creating values for others. It's not about this kind of self-promotion. It's not about the number of Twitter followers you have. It's like, how much do you contribute and how much are you building trust with you and to others, right? And how do you help other people succeed? It's about, like, being authentic, being consistent, adding value in every interaction that you have. So when you talk to people today, make sure you're adding value and actually listen to what they're saying, right? Sometimes just stand in a circle and just stand there in silence and actually listen and understand what they're saying and then pitch in. And, like, success to me is amplified by community, right? If we go back to the keynotes, we were talking about community before, and it's exactly the same in football and tech, right? No player or professional achieves greatness alone. It doesn't happen. That's one of the reasons why I created the Cloud Native Club. So we've been going since July. It's essentially a community where the understanding and idea behind it is to enable other people to grow. It's, for me, paying forward the help that I had when I was 18 years old. There was a ton of people that are here in this room at this conference that have helped me previously, and I want to give back to the next generation and help them. And I invite you to join and collaborate. And I want to kind of reaffirm, right, that challenges, you shouldn't see them as obstacles, but you should see them as opportunities, right? They're catalysts to grow and catalysts to learn. And these setbacks are setups for comebacks, right? If I remember being hidden underneath a desk, right? And in these difficult moments, they really build your character. I'm going to skip this bit a sec. So some key takeaways for me really is, like, the resilience. We need to be constantly learning, right? We need to be mastering new tactics. There's a new project that's committed to the CNCF landscape, like, every day from what it feels like. So we've got to be constantly learning. But for me, it's like, make sure that you try and choose the things that actually are important to you. Don't try and learn the whole entire landscape. It's generally not possible. And these aren't just life lessons, right? They're like tools for success. I think if we can do this, we'll be on to a winner. So, like, life and work is this kind of harmonious blend of these diverse elements, right? And it's like, we talked about orchestrating players. We talked about integrating these skills and techniques, right? But, like, in leadership, it's about inspiring and guiding others. It's not about, like, being the person that everybody looks at, right? We've got to level these people up and give them the ability to be able to succeed, right? And success kind of isn't accidental. It's about, like, this purposely bringing these elements together. So I want to leave you with one thought, right? Change is actually your greatest ally, right? Embrace it. Don't fear it, right? See it as a gateway to growth, right? And setbacks, to me at least now, are kind of opportunities in disguise, and, like, challenges are those chances to grow. And if we look at that, that's on what I call life's playing field, right? That's on the pitch, that's behind the laptop, that's, like, in everyday life. Like, the journey is just important as the destination, right? And, like, keep pushing forward and never, ever stop learning. And like, think about what change you'll embrace today that will help you evolve tomorrow. I just want to say, yeah, thanks for choosing me to start your kind of conference journey. I hope the talk's kind of warmed you up for some exciting discussions to come, and I'm really excited to kind of collaborate and communicate with you afterwards. If you see me around the conference, come and say hi. I'd be happy to talk to you. Thanks so much.